Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 15 Pro and see how this particular device holds up in 2025. Now, the first thing to keep in mind, this is actually the phone that I'm still using on an everyday basis. This is the phone that I picked up to use and I still enjoy it. I still plan on using it for a little bit of time even though I own the iPhone 16 Pro. So let's go and see how this phone holds up in 2025. Now, number one, a big thing to keep in mind here is that with a device like this type of phone, we're kind of in the situation where, we've already had the successor. It's going to be turning 2 years old this year. But if you do want to pick up this phone or some other phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPhone 15 Pro. On the front side of this particular device, you can see that this particular phone is going to be giving you a 6.1-inch LTPO Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, this type of device, this type of panel for the most part, still looks pretty good, right? I do feel like if you're going to go through and pick up a device, this type of device still looks pretty good. There's not really too many things to kind of complain about here for the most part. And I do feel like if you are going to go through and pick up a device, these things still look solid for the most part. Now, some things to keep in mind here for the most part though, is that number one, this type of device, as far as I can tell, as I mentioned before, the panel itself, not too much to complain about, 120 Hz, 2000 nits of brightness. But this could be one of those types of, panels or situations where you look at and you could be like, well, there could be some more improvements here. Like there could have been like a little bit of a better, like maybe more brightness here or something like that. But even at that point, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And you are still getting a very good looking display on this thing when it comes down to it. On the bottom, you're getting a USB Type-C port, which is still great to have. Complete flat sides all throughout this particular device too, which is really cool. On the back side, you're getting a frosted glass back. So that again is a really nice thing to have there. Then you're getting this triple camera setup on the back side, MagSafe wireless charging, which is nice. And that kind of covers it up there, right? Like this phone still holds up fairly well on the exterior, but there are a few things about this phone that maybe some other devices hold up better with. So number one, a big thing to keep in mind here is that with something like the iPhone 15 Pro, at least compared to the 16 Pro, you're missing out on things like the camera button. So that might be a big deal to you. Personally, for me, it's like really not that big of a deal to me, but that could be a big deal to you. So that right there is one thing. Other than that, you're basically getting the same type of device. Also the newer phones do get bigger panels, but I don't even think that's that big of a deal for me anyways. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. Now, when it comes down to the, the price tag of this particular phone, this is also one of those things that you're really going to have to kind of keep in mind when you're going through and picking up a device like this. So with something like an iPhone 15 Pro, this device used to cost $1,000. So if you were to go inside of the Apple Store and you were to go ahead and pick up a phone, this type of phone would basically cost you that $1,000 right there. So that was a pretty expensive price to pay. Nowadays, this phone does not really cost that much more. It doesn't cost that much money anymore. This phone is going to be costing you around $600-ish as of this point. So that is going to be a pretty big downgrade and downsize from a price tag standpoint. So this thing is going to be costing you significantly less money from that particular side. So like I said before, this phone used to cost a lot more money. Now it does not cost that much money anymore, which is amazing. So being able to go through and pick up a phone from that caliber is super, super cool. And I'm a big fan of this type of device because it doesn't cost as much money as it used to. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now on top of that, when it comes down to its camera, this camera on this phone is still very, very good. I've used this camera nonstop since I bought it, and even to film lots of YouTube videos to, use this thing in a pinch when I need to. This thing does a really good job at a lot of things that I've thrown at it. And that is actually something that I actually love a lot about this phone. Being able to go through and buy this type of device and have that type of capability is super, super sick. And for one, I enjoy having a phone like this because the price tag and the camera and just everything about this phone still is so solid. Now, some big things to keep in mind here as well. So number one, this type of camera and this type of capability, you are still kind of stuck in this situation where, it's not necessarily like the best looking camera nowadays because you do have obviously you have the Samsung Galaxy S25s, you have the iPhone 16 Pros, and those ones are definitely going to be better, but still having a device like this is still very, very nice. And I do enjoy getting devices like this because they're still going to hold up very, very well when it comes down to that side. So I do think that is a pretty big thing to keep in mind from that side as well. Once again, being able to go through and pick up this type of camera with that type of capability, it's super solid. And I, for one, I'm a massive fan of this camera when it comes down to it. So when it comes down to that side, definitely without a doubt, the iPhone 15 Pro gets a thumbs up from me. When it comes down to software longevity, you also have to remember that this type of device is going to be supported with software for several more years to come. So this device is going to be here for the next several generations. So, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Like, you're able to go through and pick up this device today and still get a very long supported device from a software perspective. And I do think from that side alone, that is a very important thing to keep in mind, because you're going to be able to go ahead and pick up this device. And from a software perspective, it's going to be able to hold the test of time for quite a bit of time. And I think that's a really nice thing to keep in mind there. So from that side too, I would definitely say this particular device holds up really, really well there too. But I guess when it comes down to the iPhone 16 Pro side, you might be thinking to yourself, well, aren't there like better devices to go and pick up from a price tag standpoint? And from that side too, I would definitely say yes, there are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is like a bad performing device by any means. Like, this device still does really, really well from a lot of different areas, including battery life. Like, the battery life of this particular device is still giving you 3,274 milliamp hours. And I've actually been getting really decent battery life from this type of device as well. And I do think that in and of itself is another very important thing to keep in mind, because this device's performance has been great, but the battery life has also been very good, and I haven't really had too many complaints from that side either. Finally, when it comes down to the performance, this device is still giving you the Apple A17 Pro chipset inside of it with 8GB of RAM. And the thing I can definitely tell you, in my personal opinion, is that the performance of this phone is still top tier. This phone still feels like $1,000 phone for me. And even for the next 2 years, I could still feel this phone feeling like a very, very fast device. Apple did such a good job with the performance of this phone, and the fact that this thing is still giving you Apple Intelligence and it's still kind of up there from the performance side is something that's really, really cool. So I really do enjoy being able to go ahead and buy a phone like this that's going to be giving me that type of capability. Like, the performance is still very, very good. And even when compared to the iPhone 16 Pros, yes, the 16 Pros are probably better, but this device is still very good, and I never really feel like this phone is a slow device or it's not going to be able to perform that well. No, this phone still performs very well, and I still feel like it is a very fast phone when it comes down to it as well. So, to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I definitely do think something like the, iPhone 15 Pro, this is still a very good phone to go and pick up. Do I think it's a perfect phone? Probably not. There would be some areas I would kind of want to go ahead and get fixed, but I think with this phone, it still is a very good phone. And if you have the money, definitely I would say go for it. It's one of those phones that I, would recommend a lot of people to go and buy, because it just makes a lot of sense to go and pick up. But would this be a phone for everybody? I mean, yeah, this is one of the most well-rounded phones you could buy. There are better phones at the price tag though that you could pick up, something like a Samsung Galaxy S25 or an iPhone 16 Pro or a 16 Pro Max. Those devices are better, but this device still holds up very well, and I'm a big fan of this device when it comes down to it. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.